Hello, everybody. All right. So, hey, guys. Oops.
Still had his YouTube on.
Well, no, I still.
Or the volume on.
In order to try to build up the viewership, I turn on my TV over here too. Actually, that just reminded me of one other thing I need to do. If you guys want to talk amongst yourselves for a quick moment, while I take care of one last little thing that, one of those things that still doesn't pop into my head until like the last year. I'll be right back.
Turning down his phone or muting his phone. So how are you today,
hey, Rick.
Metal?
How you?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm doing fine. You like my moth?
Your moth? Did you say?
Yeah, my moth. Look, it's like right here on the screen. There's a moth.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Mothra.
No, its name is Lepidopterus, right? So it's like a Lepidopterus, which is what or Lepidoptera, which is a moth's like actual name, and I put Pyro in there instead because it's a moth that has a torch on its butt and it shoots lasers out of the lenses in its wings.
So cool. Here's what was going to be the first page, or probably is going to be the first page of the Flame. Except Flyfox needs to age up the characters in the last 3 panels.
So, Mike, you like my moth?
Oh, I was just going over to Facebook real quick to see if anybody sent any. I'm hoping that Apex will make it soon here because, of course, he was my guest this past Friday. As always. A little heads up: I still need a co-host for the 15th. I still haven't found. Apex apparently is going to be going back to work on Fridays, so and be able to co-host. So. And I know the 15th that weekend you'll probably be more likely out here, Rick, unless you think you can.
Yeah, I will be out there on the 15th of September.
15th and 16th, so.
Yeah, 15th, 16th, 17th. I'll probably be there on the 14th. I can't say for sure. Not sure about Dillard's internet and all that. I might be able to, or what I'll be doing since I'll be out visiting Dillard. I'm not sure whether I'll be able to spare the couple hours.
Yeah, I get it. And I know, well, part of the reason why, of course, Metal didn't take the 15th in the first place because he wasn't sure if he'd have the time to do that. That's why we settled on the 22nd for him.
Yeah, because my brother's birthday is the 14th, and depending on the schedule, we're probably going to be busy those few days trying to do something.
Maybe you can try and get Tim.
Well, Tim, I was thinking that he's on the 8th, so I'll just have to see if he'll be cool with the idea of doing 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah. Well, it's not like it happens that often either.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting because I'll have 2 people. If that does happen, I'll actually have 2 people doing 2 weeks in a row in a 4-week span there because RJ. Who I have next on the 29th. For the remainder of the year after that, the first Friday of each month is good for him. So I have him in the 6th.
Get him on a fixed schedule.
Well, the 6th, November 3rd, and December 1st, which means, Rick, I might have to push you back to the second week if you don't mind.
In October, that won't be possible because I'll be in Ethel, Massachusetts. Well, I might be able to get on their internet and do it. Come in. That's we'll
figure it out. Because with you guys, I can usually just leapfrog. RJ is like one of the ones I actually need to schedule ahead of time and have that kind of formatted out ahead of time. But I was just, again, it was like you were even saying theoretically first week, but then I had to wait till I got RJ scheduled because he's the one with you
Yeah.
guys, I can
Yeah.
usually just leapfrog.
Yeah. Well, that's the only weekend. That's the only one in October I won't be able to do. Is the 13th. Otherwise,
Again, we don't have to talk about it as much until like this Friday, because this Friday is when you're in with me again. So, yeah. So let me just. And even though I know I sent him the StreamYard link on Facebook earlier. Rick, if you can like send Apex the StreamYard link on Twitter or X, whatever it's called now.
to me, it will always be Twitter.
Yeah.
No, you're gonna be like.
I had heard about
like
that the
Prince.
other day too. That I guess they changed. I guess Elon decided to change the name of the thing to X now.
No,
Yeah.
you have to treat it like Prince. It's the website formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah.
Okay, where is Apex?
It's made things easier though, because like if I'm trying to like open up Twitter, there's so many websites that start with T that they like my autocomplete comes up with different things. If I type in X, it's the only thing that comes. I just hit X and enter.
Well, I just found this out the other day because of course Wednesday was the presidential debate, and of course Trump was doing his thing with Tucker, and of course as I was watching some of the political commentators talking about it, like ABL in particular. In fact, a number of the political commentators were a little steamed off at Fox, because Fox apparently was getting a little greedy. I don't know if you guys had heard too much about it, but so Fox had put out a memo that if you're going to try to cover the debates, you can only use 3 seconds of material.
Oh,
if you use more than 3 seconds, then they would try to strike you.
Yeah, Fox has
because a
kind of
number
always
of them
been
were
greedy.
going to like. What was that, Middle?
I was in Fox has kind of always been greedy. They were a little bit more lenient when Tucker was there, because like he would personally push us like, no, people need to be able to come and like react to my show. But now that he's gone, like they just don't care.
yeah. 3 seconds, I don't think is good enough. I wouldn't call that fair use.
Yeah.
That's less than fair use.
Well, JR is here. JR Exner's here. So let's see. So there's Metal
and hello, JR. How are you?
Our only true saviors. Peace be upon them. All right. Well, if you guys haven't already, of course, if you guys can like and share the stream and see if we can get some more friendly people in here. Well, I guess.
Oh, JR, when were you going to send that pic?
What was that?
Oh, I was just asking JR when he was going to send a picture that he wanted me to try and merge with a character.
Okay. Well, I guess let's see. We're at 8.5 minutes now. So, granted, I didn't pick out an article. Actually, since we do have some people here, why don't we do this? Why don't we go ahead and have you guys do your intros first? And of course, as always, you can share your links. Start with Metal, and then Rick, and then we'll probably just start talking and see where we go with it. So Metal, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, talk about what you do, promote anything you want, share any links?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I am the Metal, and I am a freelance everything. I also create a lot of stuff. Yesterday, I drew this moth that's right next to me because I was participating in the Newgrounds Summer Festival, and there was a character create battle. Feel free to come moth. But my commissions are open. I do genuinely everything, even comics. So, you can hit me up. And since I've been in the Newgrounds mood on festival, anybody who happens to be there can follow me at Newgrounds.
Yeah, kind of interesting. So you drew a flying insect there, a moth, huh?
Yeah. The
it
was a battle.
That is kind of interesting because somewhat indirectly. One of the things I do have on tap to talk about tonight does have to do with a flying insect, as it were, as it was. But then I'll get to that a little bit. So this is Metals. Now, is this your link to your site or?
No, that is my Newgrounds profile. So if anybody happens to be on Newgrounds and they want to follow me there, that people can follow me there. I post pretty much all my art there as well, like I do anywhere else. So it's a nice little gallery of all my stuff. Also, there was a game I worked on that's there too. Like that I did a lot of stuff.
All right.
Cool.
And then it looks like laser beams coming out of nipples.
No. So I can even explain this too. There was a panel last night. They do at every single festival called the Character Design Battle, and basically people will split off into two teams, and everyone in the audience will end up drawing along with the theme. Pick one side, and whichever side has the most entries by the end will win. If the cooler thing you make, the more likely you are to draw people to the side you're already on. The theme was heaven versus hell. All of the heaven stuff were kind of like plant inspired. All of the hell stuff were insect inspired. And I decided to draw this moth that was its own torch, like its own flame, since moths like flames, and it's coming out of the abdomen on the back of the moth. And these false like eye patterns that you normally see on butterflies and moths and stuff, I made them lenses so that it would refract the light coming from the flame behind it and fire deadly lasers down onto the ground. I thought I had the coolest design out of everyone.
I think he's seeing it in reverse, that the lights or the laser beams are coming from the thing that the moth is firing on.
No, this is just supposed to be like anime style explosions. Originally I was going to do like dust clouds and stuff from the explosions, but then I realized like I'm not going to have enough time to make different colors for everything down there. It's just going to have to be explosion.
All right, it's interesting artwork, and as I said, and we'll get to that probably in a couple minutes
2
here,
hours.
but yeah, we'll get to that. But one of the things I am going to talk about tonight does indirectly have to do with a flying insect, as it were. Somewhat indirectly, though.
You can.
Sorry, I know. I know. I shouldn't criticize artists kind enough to share their creativity. It's like calling someone's kids ugly.
Well, if their kids are ugly,
People can call my art ugly anytime they want. I offered my line art up for sacrifice when they were doing line art review on one of the panels.
Yeah,
they didn't trash it enough. I was disappointed.
But the thing is, too, with that, like it's only through criticism or good criticism, that we can grow as artists. Because if you're doing something badly and nobody's telling you, how can you?
I don't want to grow. I just want people to insult me.
Well, you know how they say moods are contagious. If you want people to insult you, a guaranteed thing to get people to insult you is you start insulting them. I mean, could you imagine that? Bleep, you are such a bleep bleep. No, you're such a bleep bleep bleep. Yeah, you can go bleep yourself, you bleep bleep.
Oh, it's the best motivator. If I need to get myself to do something like early in the morning, I'll just go in the like bathroom and start, like smack talking myself in the mirror.
Yeah. All right. So, is there anything else you wanted to promote or talk about?
No,
or
that's good.
Like
It's Rick's turn.
I'm
good.
Rick,
it's Rick's turn.
Yeah. Well, as I think everybody knows here, I'm an artist. Well, somewhat of an artist. I, make my own, have my own comic books made, and recently reproduced the Canadian Shield as Canadian Shield Remastered. Probably going to end up putting this up sort of as a campaign on Fund My Comic, thanks to some thing by Rex and Shadowhawk. They convinced me that put it up for $1 and just use it as a storefront, as well as my website. But
of course, if you want to share any links, Rick, you're always welcome to do that. If you like.
Well, I was about to share my Instagram link, and there we are. It has shared my Instagram link.
All right, it's just taking a sec to probably come up on to the StreamYard. There it is.
Yeah. Actually, I might share one other link to my store for Cross Comics original drawings to buy.
Yeah. And of course, I know a little while ago, I don't know if we were on yet or not, but I know you were also talking about, I guess, your character, the Flame, not to be confused with the Flame from Fox Feature Syndicate back in 1939. Your
Yeah.
version of the Flame, I guess you're working on, or you got that coming out soon?
Yeah, well, that's going to be on my next major campaign. The one that I was just talking about for the remastered isn't a major campaign, but yeah, it's going to be coming out the same time as Canadian Shield 3, Snowdrift 2, and of course it'll be the Flame 1. And I have like the first page. It was supposed to be done, but I think the artist has to change some things because second, third, and fourth panel the kids need to be aged up. Unfortunately, because it said the ages that it was supposed to be, but he made them all at about the same age, which is 5 in the first panel.
Oh.
So it's supposed to be 5, 8, 10, and then 13. And well,
and he just made all of them 5.
Yeah, or that's what it looks like to me because the kids are wearing the same thing in each of the panels. So, and they don't look.
There's the link to Rick's site there.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else, Rick?
No, not at this time.
All right. So, anyways, with that, so was there anything niche wise, kind of crossing your minds, guys? Because again, we're still waiting to see if Apex comes. Because I want, I before I get into what we went over Friday, because there was some cool stuff I wanted you guys to hear his reactions to it. Don't know if either of you dropped by on Friday or reading, but
well, I don't know how long ago this happened, but I heard the voice actor of Harley Quinn from Batman the Animated Series died. I'm not sure how.
Oh yeah, I saw that headline yesterday. Arlene Sorkin.
Yeah.
Yeah, she I guess passed away at the age of 65. I didn't look into that. Kind of interesting that you mentioned that too. Not that I was going to talk as much about her as of yet, but I do have some morbid news because there's actually been quite a few deaths of some pretty well-known people over the last few days here. So on Wednesday, Terry Funk passed away. Former NWA World Heavyweight Champion Terry Funk passed away at the age of 79. And then the following day, on Thursday, Wyndham Rotunda, better known to fans as Bray Wyatt, passed away from a heart attack at the age of 36. According to some of the stories, apparently the reason he died of a heart attack was because he had I guess been struggling with some medical issues throughout the first part of the year here, I guess, for the last few months. That's why he's been off WWF television. They didn't disclose what the medical issues were, but apparently he had caught COVID. And the COVID had exacerbated an existing heart condition he had. Ended up passing away. It's like Thursday morning, I guess his father, Mike Rotunda, WWE Hall of Famer Mike Rotunda, also known to most fans as Erwin R. Shyster, called Triple H to let him know, hey, look, Bray's dead. So he passed away. And then I guess yesterday, Bob Barker, who is known for, of course, The Price is Right and his game show hosting, also did, he was a celebrity host of WrestleMania one year, as well as lending his voice on a few episodes of, some of Matt Groening's work, Simpsons, Futurama, that kind of thing. He passed away at 99. Just again, a few months shy, just like Jimmy Weldon we talked about a few weeks ago. Just a few months shy of his 100th birthday. And now, of course, Rick, you just mentioned Arlene Sorkin. So
Yeah.
So that all in rapid succession. So, yeah.
Oh.
So
Oh, also, not that this is really well, it is niche, but it's not. The one con that I'm going to that's going to be in Dillard's area, Alpha Omega Con, they're going to have a special guest of Katie Lee. She's done Adventures in Odyssey, voiceovers. She's a voice actress. Done stuff from Star Wars, droids, the Care Bears family, My Little Pony, a pup named Scooby Doo, and Muppet Babies.
yeah, Katie Lee, as I understand it, is a pretty well known. Actually, if I remember correctly, I think she might have done. Oh no, I may be thinking Katie Griffin. I think. I should double check that because I think Katie Lee also might have done. Actually, though, now that I really think about it, I'm thinking more Katie Griffin, but I should check that just to make sure because I'm thinking she may have lent her voice to Ray on Sailor Moon as well.
This one, Katie Lee, in a pup named Scooby Doo, she did Daphne's voice, and in Muppet Baby, she did Baby Ralph.
I think her name is spelled Leigh, right?
Like Lay.
Yeah.
Like Lay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she voiced Sailor Iron Mouse.
And she did a young Han Solo in the animated Star Wars droids.
All right, yeah. So, yeah, I have her. I have her stuff on. I have some of her stuff here on. She was Sailor Iron Man, Chuko Nezo, and Sailor Moon Sailor Stars. I on Behind the Voice Actors Studio. She's been doing stuff for quite a while.
Yeah.
I'm just. She was Sunny Gummy in Fruit Loops cartoons, Fruit Loops commercials, I guess. Let's see, these are some.
I mean, obviously, I would say the most prominent thing she ever was Sheila the Thief from Dungeons and Dragons. So.
Yeah, and I see her right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's been around for quite a while.
Yeah, 80s, early 80s.
Yeah.
I'd say.
Yeah. Okay. So she may not be the one I was thinking of. Then I think it's Katie because I remember Katie doing the voice of Sailor Mars Ray in for the Deke productions of Sailor Moon. But yeah, she was Alex in Totally Spies. So, so yeah. So basically, yeah. So
yeah, it was Katie Griffin.
Yeah, Katie Griffin.
I
knew it was a Katie who did Sailor Mars voice. I just wasn't remembering.
And then she was replaced by Emmy Barlow because Katie didn't finish the role.
Well, yeah. What apparently happened was, I guess, there was a change in companies basically, and I think the only one who remained from the original group of girls was Susan Roman, who was. Sailor Jupiter. So Deke did like the first season of Sailor Moon, and I think up through Sailor Moon R, and then starting with Sailor Moon S, Cloveway I think took over, and more or less just about all with the exception of Jupiter's voice, Susan Roman, all the girl, basically they ended up having to replace all the girls, albeit. Sailor Moon's voice was, originally started out Tracy Moore, and then I think she moved down to L.A., so they got Terry Hawks in there, and then there was Linda. I think Linda Ballantyne was the final one to do Sailor Moon's voice. And then
they changed all of their names too to make them more westernized.
well, yeah, well that was Deke and Cloveway.
Yeah.
Deke and
Ray
Cloveway.
is still technically
Deke
Ray.
Cloveway, and a lot of
Yeah.
people were very critical of the Deke and Cloveway dubs.
Yeah.
Because of that, because of the westernization, or as the term was known when they did it to Battle of the Planets as well, the Bowderization.
Yeah.
Of the anime. A lot of people were not happy about it.
Mina was still Mina. Ray was technically still Ray, but they changed the way they spelled their name. But then they changed
Amy
Mercury,
was still
Moon,
Amy.
and
but instead of I, it was Y.
Jupiter they completely changed because her name is
Usagi became Serena.
Yeah.
Of course, Chibiusa became Little Rini. And then Nina was originally Haruka or Hiraku. But anyways, so just to kind of go over, some quick little profile things on the people we just talked about who just died here. Start with Terry.
Well, one was dying, and the other is just going to be at a con that I'm going to be at. So I just thought, people might know.
That's what I was originally talking about there.
I just don't want people to get confused and think that's going to be at the con instead.
Rick's going to a con to attend a funeral.
Yeah. Katie Lee, at least to my knowledge, is not passing away. Just so people don't.
No, she's just going to be at a con, Christian con.
We're just. Oh, she is she going to be the one in the California here?
Yeah.
That might be interesting. I said that I'd probably try to drop by to say hi too. Because Whittier is just north of where I'm at. So,
could you imagine though, in the near future, with like some of these TikTok influencers and stuff, where fame is literally the only thing that matters to them, that their funerals probably are going to be conventions.
Almost like a presidential funeral or something like that.
Yeah, where everybody's showing up for it.
No, just their OnlyFans.
Well, no, they just get to skip the line.
Because I'm sure people like me and us three wouldn't be attending any of their funerals.
Yeah. Well, anyways, as I just pulled up Terry Funk's,
wrestling career.
Yeah, pro wrestling wiki here. But Terry Funk, as I said, was known. Let's see, 1960. Funk started out his career in 1965 working his father Dory Funk Sr.'s promotion in Amarillo, Texas. He and his brother Dory Funk Jr. quickly rose up the ranks and became big money wrestlers by the end of the decade. So started up in 1965, and then by the 70s, both Funk brothers were. So they joined the National Wrestling Alliance.
Funky fresh.
Yeah, they joined the National Wrestling Alliance in 1968. In 1975, Terry defeated Jack Briscoe for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. He began a 14-month title reign, which ended in Toronto when he was defeated by handsome Harley Race, who won the title for the second time. And this was the start of Harley Race's runs as NWA World Champion, from the late 70s to early 80s. But Terry still maintained a strong, kind of funny in the early part of it. In this part of his career, Terry Funk was more of a technical wrestler. Most people, when they hear the name Terry Funk, they remember him from his ECW work, his hardcore work. But he was a big name throughout the NWA, throughout the 70s and 80s, and he'd even have some wars with he'd go down to Memphis, have some wars with Jerry Lawler as well. So but so we just talked about that.
Hey, Shadowhawk.
Hey, Shadowhawk, if you want, I know I gave you the link if you want to come in and hang out and talk. Just popping in to say hi, leave a like, have a good. All right, well, thanks, man. So yeah, so yeah, so and during this time too, Terry and Dory Jr. had a strong tag career over in Japan. They were constantly in the finals, usually going up against Giant Baba and Jumbo Tsuruta in All Japan's World Greatest Tag League tournaments every year. They were constantly in the among the final four usually. Let's see. Terry took some time off after his world title reign, but he and his brother traveled around the country, mostly in Texas, Florida, and Detroit. Terry and Dory Jr. also made a name for themselves in Japan. He made a name for himself with his over-the-top mannerisms and sometimes colorful get-ups, as well as his brawling ability. Now, so he was a good brawler, but he also was a pretty good technician. It was actually a move that was attributed to the Funks was a spinning toe hold, which is a very simple move where you grab the leg and you basically the spinning toe hold, you spin on it, and you just are cranking the ankle and the knee at the same time.
And hello, Galaxy Boy and Woody.
We have some more guests, huh?
Yes.
All right. Hello, Galaxy Boy. Let's see. Face Blue 3. Okay, I'm guessing.
He put a lot of those emojis in the chat, like 10 of them.
Yeah, and they're just being spelled out there. Okay.
Yeah.
I was hoping the shake to shake Terry Funk's hand once at a pre-wrestling show meet and greet, but he was well surrounded by adoring kids, so I just watched. Hi, Rick, Mike, Shadow, Metal, etc. Hey, Woody. And if you haven't already, guys, of course, if you can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here, that'd be appreciated. And thank you for those who've already liked LJR Exner as well. Oh, wait. All right. There we go. So, anyways, as we continue on the retrospect. So, now Terry did have a couple of stints in the WWF/WWE. The later one is probably the one more people know of when he was Chainsaw Charlie. But before that, Terry Funk made his World Wrestling Federation debut in 1985. In his televised debut on Championship Wrestling, he not only beat Aldo Marino, but he also beat up a ring attendant named Mel Phillips, who was also at the time one of the WWF ring announcers. Funk also had the gimmick at the time of carrying a branding iron with him to ringside, using it to quote-unquote brand his fallen opponents. In early 1986, Funk challenged Hulk Hogan for the WWF Championship, but was defeated. Terry next teamed with his brother Dory, calling himself Haas Funk, and Jimmy Jack Funk, Jesse Barr, a storyline brother.
So Terry faced off against Terry.
Well, technically, yeah, because Hulk Hogan's real name is Terry Bollea, but Terry and Dory stuck around the WWE for a year at this point. Now, granted, throughout the 70s, of course, late 70s, early 80s, Terry was also in the NWA. I mean, he won a number of different titles, including at the time Mid-Atlantic's version of the NWA United States heavyweight title. He was one of the first guys to, I think it was like second or third guy to win the NWA Missouri heavyweight title.
Yeah, and now I don't remember him a lot, Terry Funk, but I do remember the guy that branded people. I didn't remember him with his name. What he says, my favorite insult came from Terry Funk. You egg sucking dog.
Yeah, he was known for egg sucking dog or egg sucking pig. Those are two of the common. Well, Terry also had a bit of an acting career too. He had some appearances in in some movies. Like the one that comes to mind for me, of course, was a bit part in Over the Top with Sylvester Stallone, where he's kind of like the one of the security guides for basically the antagonist of the film.
Yeah.
The grandfather who was trying to keep his son away from the trucker there because he thought the trucker or Sylvester Stallone was basically the ne'er-do-well, the character he played. But now Jesse Barr there, even though he was not related to the Funks in reality, he was a part of another wrestling family. He's the older brother of the late Art Barr, who was juicer in WCW, and both Jesse and Art Barr were the sons of Sandy Barr, who was more known in the Pacific Northwest Territory under Don Owens. He was a referee there, booker, that kind of thing. But anyways, back to Terry here. They were managed by Jimmy Hart. Terry began a heated rivalry with the Junkyard Dog, which led to a match between Terry Funk and Haas Funk, and the team of Tito Santana and Junkyard Dog at WrestleMania 2, which the Funks won. Again, though,
really funky.
But again, they were only there in that stint for like the first, for 1 year. So that was Terry Funk's first stint in the WWF, and then of course after he left the WWF in 1986, he tour around more. He'd go back and forth between some of the territories, including like Memphis, Memphis, Japan. I think he's going back and forth between those two territories mostly. And then in 1989, Funk entered World Championship Wrestling and joined the JTEX Corporation. Now, this was just after Ted Turner had bought up Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling from Jim Crockett Promotions, basically. And so that's when they were officially became World Championship Wrestling. It was December of '88 when the sale was completed there. And then so now it was under this. Of course, he began feuding with Ric Flair, who had defeated, and this was also around the time he did that movie too, Over the Top, who had defeated Ricky Steamboat at Wrestle War '89 for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Funk, who was one of the three judges for the main event, challenged Flair to a title match. Flair refused, saying that Funk was, quote, spending time in Hollywood, unquote, instead of focusing on wrestling, which was an allusion to, of course, his Funk then attacked, pile driving Flair on a ringside table. Now, at that time, of course, these were not the gimmick tables that we would see a few years later. The table did not break, basically. Full on supported. So, this put the champion Flair out of action until the Great American Bash. I'll just try to summarize this because I know I'm going a little long here. Funk would leave, of course, leave the company, come back in '94, have a short stint as part of the Colonel Robert Parker's stud stable with Bunkhouse Buck, Arn Anderson, Ming. where he would be involved in a War Games match with the Rhodes family and the Nasty Boys. Then from 94 to 97, this is probably one of his, from your guys' generation, this is probably one of his more well-known skits, his time in Extreme Wrestling, where he was brought in as a hardcore legend. He'd have some famous matches against like Captain Jack, a.k.a. Mick Foley, Shane Douglas, the Sandman, Sabu, and even his own protege, Tommy Dreamer. And I think he had some matches against Raven, too.
Yeah, I wasn't watching wrestling at this point. Woody says, Terry Funk also played a bar bouncer in the movie Roadhouse.
Yeah. So, yeah, he had some. He was getting involved in Hollywood and all that. He also, of course, as I said, went back to the WWF in the late 90s there, where he took on the persona of Chainsaw Charlie, where he was teaming once again with his former, one of his closest friends, Mick Foley, who was going through all his identity crisis stuff at the time. Upon leaving WWF, Funk officially retired again. Yeah, he would retire. He would go back and forth between retiring and not retiring. So he returned to ECW and WCW in 98 to 2000. He would win on this stint of his WCW in 2000. He'd win the WCW Hardcore Championship 3 times. Again, it's a tale of two careers because the early part of his career he's more of a technical wrestler, more of a traditional catch-as-catch-can type wrestler. And then in the latter part of his career, he kind of became the crazy old man gimmick. He's hardcore. He'd be doing moonsaults through tables, all that kind of. And a moonsault, for those of you who don't know, is basically a backward, what they would call a backward flipping body press, where you basically flip back onto an opponent. From 2002 to 2005, Funk was a regular top star for Ring of Honor, Major League Wrestling, based out of New York and Florida, respectively. Funk, over this part of his career, of course, he would basically, make sporadic appearances, but this is basically return for ECW's One Night Stand, the WWE promoted event back in 2006. And again, just continued on the independent circuit throughout much of the rest. As we were talking about too, he was, of course, in a number of movies, including Roadhouse, Over the Top, The Ringer, Paradise Alley. So, as I said, he's a former NWA World Heavyweight Champion. Also, of course, a former ECW heavyweight and World Television Champion. So, and as you can see here, he won numerous regional titles. So that's the extent of Terry Funk's career. Try to be a little bit quicker on. I think I just got into reading the profile a little too much there. So now we'll go on to Bray Wyatt here, real quick, and I'll try to speed things up a little bit more here. Bray Wyatt, of course, who's real name is Wyndham Rotunda. He's a third-generation wrestler. He was the son of Mike Rotunda, who everybody would know probably more as Erwin R. Shyster. Also was Michael Wall Street in WCW. Essentially, the majority of his career he spent in the WWE, developing as part of NXT. Initially, when he came up with NXT in 2010, he was Husky Harris. And then of course he would be part of the Nexus angle in the early 2000s. And he went back down to, and he would oftentimes during his time in FCW, he would actually he and his brother Taylor Rotunda, who was known as Bo Dallas, would team in WCW together as Bo and Duke Rotunda. and he would, of course, and then by 2012, that's when he came up with probably one of his most famous gimmicks, the Wyatt family. That also, and what's kind of interesting is, so the Wyatt family was composed of four individuals: Bray Wyatt, Luke Harper, of course, the late Brody Lee. Let's see. Eric Rowan and Braun Strowman, and half of that group is now dead. And I think from what I understand, Brody Lee died of a similar situation where I think he died of a heart attack that they say may have been linked to it being exacerbated by COVID. He was only 41, so and he had a big thing going in AEW at that time, but that was Brody Lee. But anyways, so the Wyatt family, 2012 to 2014. So, and he spent the majority of his career that he, of course, he feuded and reckoned he had an ongoing storyline with Matt Hardy in 2017, 2018. And then in 2019, after he came back from a injury, he started the whole Firefly Funhouse shtick, 2019 to 2021, and then Wyatt was released in 2021 and then came back in 2022 as the Fiend. And the Fiend, and then of course, so and then but basically that was he spent a good part of his career in he was credited with a lot of being one of the more creative wrestlers. He actually did hold he was a 2-time Universal champion, 1-time WWE champion, and then with Matt Hardy held the Raw tag team titles, and then Randy Orton and Luke Harper held the SmackDown tag team titles. So, and with his brother, he was a former FCW. So 36, he had a legendary career ahead of him, I believe. A lot of people liked him. So, yeah. So, anyways, and then of course 2 other people we can talk about real quick. Bob Barker, who for the most part, most people know him for his work on The Price is Right. But as I said, he did have some credits in the. As I said, he was also a celebrity host for the WWE, as well as he lent his voice to a couple of cartoons. And Arlene Sorkin. Let's see. How did he die? Actually, well, he was 99 years old, so I guess let's see what he. Oh yeah, well, his wife died back in 1981. Dorothy Jo Gideon at the age of 57 from lung cancer. It doesn't say here how he died, but I guess it would be natural causes, obviously, because health and death. Barker died from natural causes at his home in Hollywood Hills on August 26, 2023, yesterday at the age of 99. He will be interned alongside his wife at Forest Lawn. And now, so one more to go over real quick. And again, I just wanted to try to. Yeah, so according to this, she passed away on Thursday as well. But it was, and you see right here, she portrayed Harley Quinn on Batman
Batman the Animated Series.
Batman the Animated Series. And I do know from what I read too, she was married to Christopher Lloyd she married Christopher Lloyd in 1995, with whom she had 2 sons, Eli and Owen. She was 67 years old when she died. So, but
Oh, Trading Places. I remember that movie.
yeah. So, and then there's some of her works there. Within Days of Our Lives is Calliope Jones, the panelist on New Hollywood Squares. Of course, most people in our would know her as Harley Quinn. Well, Batman the animated series, the new Batman animated series, basically anything involving a lot of it the DCAU. She was Harley Quinn for a lot of the DCAU of the late 90s, early 2000s. So she was also Veronica in the episode Bewitched Bob on Tasmania too. So, anyways, that's all. So, what I would like to do, guys, for a quick moment here, since we did talk about people who passed away. Well, before I do what I was going to do there, did you guys want to give any thoughts on the people we just talked about? You guys have any memories, thoughts you want to share on them? Now that we
Not really. Not that I can think of, at least for me.
I really like the scene in Happy Gilmore where he has to go with Bob Barker as his partner, and they get into a fight, and Bob Barker punches his lights out. That's a pretty funny scene.
yeah.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, that considering that Barker was pretty he was pretty old and spry then too,
And Happy was supposed to be a hockey player, so they're supposed to be tough.
Yeah. Yeah. And as I said, I know Barker, lent his voice, I think a couple times, on The Simpsons and on Futurama. Yeah. Of course, a lot of people probably lent their voices as disembodied heads on Futurama.
Well, then again, some people might have just tried to replicate their voices too.
Now I know. Well, I tell you,
There were a couple impersonations, especially for people who currently were not alive when the show was done, like an ex-president. But most celebrities whose head showed up were voiced by themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I know Dick Clark in particular was another one. Yeah. So, now I don't know. Let's see. If you don't mind me asking, Metal, how old are you, or if you want to just give range or whatever?
Oh, I will be 32 by the end of the year. I am a youngin by comparison.
Okay, so 32. So that would mean you were born in 91. So you would have probably been seeing Terry Funk probably more in the latter part of his career, like his ECW stuff or his time as Chainsaw Chart. Well, even some of the WCW stuff too.
If at all. I probably saw
Yeah.
him in Roadhouse watching that on TV because Roadhouse came on a lot.
All right. So, any thoughts on Terry Funk or anything like that?
Not particularly. I mean, it's sad to hear anybody pass, but I don't really have any
Well,
memories.
Terry was 79, so he did live pretty long.
Yeah. Were you even that much into
their doctors
wrestling?
saying they couldn't believe it. He was wrestling well in. You just went silent there.
Rick? Me?
No, Metal.
Oh well, people were talking, so I didn't want to cut over anyone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. But the answer is Rick. I've said this several times now. I wasn't that much into wrestling. I knew quite a bit about it because most people I knew were into it, but I personally never was. I did like a lot of the personas and stuff, but I wasn't super big into it.
Yeah, I didn't think so. So
Yeah, I just figured I'd ask because I figured maybe as a kid you would have probably watched it more. I know you don't come off as somebody who's as much into it now. That's why.
No, actually, if anything, it would be the other way around. I hated it when I was a kid, and I have more appreciation of it the older I get.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I watched
because I was always in
wa-
martial arts and stuff growing up. So like I looked at wrestling and like I couldn't appreciate it for the type of improvised theater and stunt work that it was, and just seeing that like that's not how fighting works. Like it just bothered me as a kid. I was kind of weird in that way. But like as I get older, I have a pretty good appreciation for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was into it like mid to late 80s to the probably early 90s.
So then you might have seen some of his late '80s work then, Rick.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I don't remember him. I remember him, but I don't remember him. They were talking about the branding thing. I remember the character that branded people. Do I remember the characters was called Terry Funk? No, I just remember there was one of the wrestlers that did that.
Well, yeah. Normally we don't go this, Jr. Normally, and we are just about to finish up the wrestling stuff here. I'm just, again, pro wrestling is part of the niche culture because a lot of 18, 25-year-olds do get into that too. There's a lot of crossover there. But I would just want to get in, give the guys a chance, one last chance to share any memories they might have had. But with that, so one last piece of business here. I want to just do a quick moment silence for the 4 individuals who passed away: Terry Funk, Bray
Bob
Wyatt,
Barker.
Arlene Sorkin, and Bob Barker. So. All right, there we go. And we're done. Let's see. I respect wrestling much more as an adult. I still don't enjoy it, but it's a young white male art form, so I don't bag on it much.
I think he meant it.
I is next to 8. It's supposed to be it.
It much anymore. Yeah, I mean, again, I cover it, but I don't like this weekend there was a lot of stuff going on, but
Yeah.
I wasn't planning, because as I said, there's like 3 pay-per-views.
Yeah.
There are 3 major events happening this weekend: NWA's 75th anniversary show, Impact Wrestling's Emergence, and of course all in from Wembley Stadium by AEW. But again, I wasn't going to go through all that with you guys because I know you guys are.
Yeah.
I kind of knew you guys were not as deep into wrestling. I just cover it anyways for those who might be like.
Yeah, like you said, it's a niche thing, but not everybody that's into the comics is into it. Although some are, like I said, I was for a little bit in the mid to late 80s, early 90s. I got out of it, and anybody that's into it, fine.
Yeah. I'm a little disappointed. I was hoping that by now, of course, Apex would have been here because I really wanted him to be here to share his thoughts on what we read this past Friday. Because we had some pretty good stories we went over from December 1939, the books that came out from DC that year. We went over the Superman feature in Action Comics Volume 1, number 20, the Hawkman feature from Flash Comic Volume 1, number 2, and then the Sandman feature from Adventure Comics Volume 1, number 46. Now,
so were you done reading them in a flash?
What was that?
Were you done reading them in a flash?
Oh. No, we actually ended up going over 2 hours, but that's because we kind of dragged down our initial conversation a little longer, trying to wait to see if people would come in. So we actually we ended up going like 2 hours and 20 because the Superman story was like 13 pages. The Hawkman story was 12 pages, and the Sandman story was 10. So
Wow.
35 pages right there. But they were pretty good story. So the Superman story, we had a big reveal on that one. And it was basically the fifth of six initial appearances over a 9-issue run by Superman. Now, okay, here's a little trivia question for you. See if you guys get this. Who was Superman's first recurring villain?
Ultra Humanite. Yeah.
Right,
I've been on enough of the shows with you. That's all I know.
What was that?
I've been on
you were there
enough of
Friday, right?
Well, no, but I've also been on, 2 or 3 of the shows that you've done. We've read the Ultra Humanite stuff, and you've said
this
that
was
before.
the fifth of his 6 appearances over a 9-issue period. There, from issue, he made his debut in issue 13, Action Comics 13. His sixth of 7, because he would come late. He would make an appearance in an All-Star Squadron story later on, years later. But his 6th appearance, at least the Golden Age version, I know that there's probably a post-crisis version of him where his story might have. But this was also the tale where he returned not as a withered old man, but this was the first story
As a bodacious babe.
Yeah, where basically you hear about him transferring his brain from one body to another. In this case, he transferred it from a withered old man to a young actress, Dolores Winters. So, the small extent of pro wrestling interest I have influences this comic character of mine.
It's a 6-page short with a wrestling themed superhero that I'll probably do more with later.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny because there's a wrestling persona over in Japan known as Tiger Mask, and there have been by this point I think 5 or 6 different people who donned the Tiger Mask.
I'm actually somewhat familiar with it. Yeah.
Well, because there was originally back in the late 60s a manga and later anime called Tiger Mask. Now, the first wrestler to don the mask in the real world here was Satoru Sayama, and he was a multiple time, junior heavyweight champion. I believe, NWA world. He had some legendary matches with the Dynamite Kid. So, in the early 80s.
I also really like Kinnikuman. Kinnikuman's a great manga / anime. I think the follow-up, the Legacy Kinnikuman.
Oh, yeah.
Ultimate
Muscle is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, Ultimate Muscle is what they called it here, yeah. Kinnikuman.
Oh, yeah,
I love
I think I watched that, Ultimate Muscle.
In fact, one of Samoa Joe's moves, the Muscle Buster.
Yeah.
Got that from the anime.
Yeah. I have a villain-themed wrestler, Taurus.
Yeah, and I also know in Teen Titans, they introduced a character called I think she was Tigra or something like that. She was a luchador, Mexican wrestler themed character in the 2003 Teen Titans cartoon.
Oh, I love luchador characters. Luchador characters are so fun in cartoons or even video games. My favorite Street Fighter character is El Fuerte.
Well, there was a Mucha Lucha cartoon as well in there. Yeah.
See, and I could never get into that. My brothers loved it. I think it was the art style. I could not stand their big heads, like the way they were shaped. They looked like potatoes.
I think Bane was influenced
Bane's
by
heavily
luchador.
influenced, yeah. But I also really like the Macho Man. So any character based off the Macho Man.
We were talking about Bane because of the fact, of that one director.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one clown.
Yeah, I haven't even gone to see that yet either. I don't think I am.
That movie's not doing too well.
Yeah, well, it's really far off from the actual comic. So you've alienated, 90% of your audience.
And it probably alienated the last 10% of the people who watched after that little diatribe about how Bane was a representation of interventionism in Latin America.
No, that's part of it. Like I'm sure 10% of comic book fans will actually go see it. I was going to go see it. I haven't yet. I'm probably not.
Oh, I had no interest from like the first time they were talking about it. I saw the screenshots. I'm like, I'm not interested in this.
Yeah,
If it
I
was
saw
Ted,
the
maybe.
I saw the trip. If it was Jamie Reyes done right, maybe. But I'd probably prefer, like you said, Ted Cord.
Yeah.
Because that would be a great way to introduce Booster as well. Booster Gold.
Yeah. They can't do anything right.
It's kind of funny because I've been watching as part of my blocks and stuff like that. I've been watching Batman: The Brave and the Bold again, right? The 2000 the mid to late 2000s there, that particular cartoon, and of course in that one they have Jaime Reyes as the Blue Beetle, and of course Michael John Carter as Booster Gold. So the one incident where you did see Booster, Michael John Carter and Ted Cord interact was in an episode where Booster went back in time to see his old friend again, and they reveal in the cartoon that Ted never revealed to Booster and Batman that he was friends with both of them because of the kind of the conflicting personalities. It's kind of funny because Tom Everett Scott was the guy who provided the voice of Booster Gold in both his one appearance on Injustice League Unlimited and in this series as well. The other thing that I remember Tom Everett Scott from was from That Thing You Do. Where he was a drummer for the fictional one-hit wonder band The Wonders.
Although they're not as famous as Batman and Robin, but the duo of Blue Beetle and Booster Gold is, for I think, especially in the DC people, is very iconic.
Well, yeah, there were. Well, we have to remember too. As I remember just from the little research I've done on it, the Brave and the Bold series was, eventually evolved into a team up series. It started out as kind of a showcase title that would preview characters or teams like I think the Justice League of America, for example, made their first appearances in Brave and the Bold as kind of a showcase preview title, much like the showcase comics were back in the 60s there. And then I think it became a team up book. Well, I don't know if it was Batman and the Brave and the Bold or actually no, I think that one came last, but it was a team up book there for a while where I think it may have been first off with Batman and then eventually just more random. Batman would usually team up with B and C level heroes like Blue Beetle, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, that kind of thing. And then they started mixing and matching. I think Blue Beetle and Booster Gold were a popular team from that series. But let's see, Green Arrow and Green Lantern. I think it was that book where they had Hal Jordan and Green Arrow doing that whole trek across the country. That you had a number of the Flash and Green Lantern.
Well, I think they actually did that in their books, went back and forth for Green Lantern, Green Arrow.
Yeah. So anyways.
And of course, the best Blue Beetle with Booster is, Ted Cord. It doesn't really work as well with Jimmy Reyes. I think that's his name.
Jaime Reyes.
Jaime?
Yeah. Well, I think in some ways Ted Cord plays off better against Michael. So Booster is basically depicted as a glory-seeking, fame-seeking hero, and most of the other heroes just can't stand him. They think he's arrogant. They think he's not his heart's not in the right place when it comes to being a Jedi, right? Ted though sees something in him. It's like, I think, as explained in the episode I was just talking about from Batman Brave and the Bold, the way Ted explained it. Well, Batman's a work friend and Booster's a fun friend.
Yeah.
The way, in other words, Batman is a friend, that Ted can work with. They respect each other's abilities and all that, and whereas Booster's kind of the fun friend. He's kind of the guy that Ted can kind of just relax with and hang out with, and they share a lot of common interests. But so now we're talking more comics.
Yeah.
And cartoon, cartoons and comics, which, as we know, over the past 100 years have gone hand in hand with each other.
Well, before they did the whole, I think it was before they did the whole reboot thing with New 52. I like the book Booster was in. I think it was his own title, where he was, like a guardian of the multiverse. He was sort of doing the Exiles thing almost by himself, with Rip Hunter.
Yeah. Wow, what's this, Metal?
It's Please Stand By.
I guess he had to. He just
had to go off camera for a couple minutes.
He just. BRB. Okay, that's what he. Oops! Why did I do that? Oopsie! I'd close that shit. But anyways, it's kind of funny that he did that, because I was just about to ask. Because I noticed he hadn't talked in a while there. I was about to give him a chance to talk. So, yeah. You getting tired there, Rick?
Yes and no.
Yeah, we just passed the hour mark. Hour and 12 minutes coming up on it. Yeah, so. Wait to see what's going on. Yeah. Oh yeah. What I was talking about. We really got off track because I was talking about what we were reading from Friday. I'll wait till.
You said you read Hawkman.
I'll continue talking about that stuff. Because I'd already talked a little bit about how Ultra Humanite had transferred his brain from the body of a withered old man to a young actress.
To a bodacious babe.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny because as Apex had told you, you're back, hey Metal.
The dog was going crazy, and I was trying to figure out why. And it's everybody's working in the front yard with the garage door open, and she wants to be in the garage with them, but the door's open, so they can't. So now she's going crazy. And
They're working in the garage? What are they doing?
No, they're working in the front yard.
Oh, work.
Yeah.
But they need stuff from the garage, so the garage door's open, and she can't be out there because she'll just run around.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Yeah, the big reveal, as I revealed in the Superman story, was basically the revelation that Ultra Humanite, that was the start of his brain transferring thing that he'd become synonymous for, which he transferred his brain from a withered old man to a hot young Hollywood actress. And then, of course, we read, and of course, he would appear again in the next issue, 21, and then would appear years later in All-Star Comics. And then we read Hawkman's story, in which he took on Alexander the Great, trying to take over the world with a gravity beam of some type that just made everything heavier. And part of the reason why I chose to do that story, of course, was because I saw Alexander the Great would also make another appearance years later it might have even been the same All-Star Squadron annual issue that I was just mentioning. Ultra Humanite was in, and then the Sandman dealt with a villain called the Coin, which was a friend of his who ended up killing another friend of his. So, some good stuff and some good stuff. I just wish Apex was here to be able to share more of his thoughts. He had some interesting thoughts on some of this stuff. So, I probably this week I probably will start reaching out to some of the other people like Terry and Chris, Diana, some of them, see if any of them want to come in on the 15th.
Of September, you mean?
September 15th, yeah. Just trying to build. At least I have you two, RJ, and Tim, and as part of the rotation. That's 4. That's still, at least once a month. So, But anyways, let's see. What else can we talk about? So.
Any articles that you read this week that might be interesting?
Yeah, actually, what I was thinking of doing, because I'm still like a week or so behind because of that little 2-day thing I did on doing the Canadian comics history. So instead of going back on articles that I've already read and going over, I was actually thinking about trying to do whatever the next one, to move everything forward, trying to get caught up. I probably could do that. Look something up like that.
Yeah, we could look at a
since we had all those deaths to talk about. Of course, I did. That's why I didn't pick an article already, because I didn't know if. But I can probably go take a quick peek. Actually, once I set this up, in fact, once I at least get the Bounding in the Comics page up and running. They did some formatting changes here on this that took me by surprise. But before I do that, why don't you guys talk amongst yourselves in the chat? I do have to step away from the computer for a moment. I'll be right back.
After these messages, he'll be right back. So it's yeah, I think you asked that earlier.
Nothing's been new. I mean, I'm tired because I've been awake earlier and longer than normal, right? Because I've still been going to sleep about the same time. Because all 3-day weekend has been the Newgrounds Summer Fest this year. Pretty late into the summer, but it was going on. It just ended like an hour and maybe a half, maybe like somewhere between an hour and a half to an hour before the show.
I forgot about that it was even going on.
Yeah,
so
I
how
put
was
some reminders out. It was fun. It was pretty fun. It's under different management, but they're all buddies of mine, so it's still, like they were trustworthy, and it still ran smoothly.
Oh, that's good. And for
that's
those
where that moth came from before.
Well, for those that don't know, maybe tell people what Newgrounds is.
Well, I'm surprised at anybody who doesn't know what Newgrounds is, but I guess at this point in time in the internet, that's actually pretty niche. But it was one of the oldest websites still on the internet. It's been around since 1995, technically. And a lot of the major stuff of what makes Newgrounds kind of started around like 2002. But it started off as Tom Fulp's like personal blog website thing and grew into a place where people put Flash games and movies. Technically, I guess movies first, but Tom Fulp was the one who kind of figured out that you could use Flash to make games with Pico School. And since then, it's just become like this really big platform that anybody can put like games, movies, art, music, and such on. Nice community. Still functions primarily off a forum.
Cool.
All right. Yeah. So now I just got to look and I think I will just improve it because Bounding in the Comics changed its formatting here a little bit, so it's a little more tricky now.
Not good. I hate it. I hate it when websites do that. They have it working as far as I would consider pretty good, and then they go change things completely, making it very difficult to watch or read anything.
Another good thing about Newgrounds, because it hardly ever changes the way it works. It takes a really long time before they change anything.
Sometimes that can be a bad thing, but I think most of the time.
Oh yeah, we're still waiting on the comics portal. They've been said they were going to make a comics portal for years for like web comics and stuff, and I just have to upload everything as an image. I'm like, please just get the comics portal done. Or the ability to have multiple authors on an image. So if somebody like pencils or inks something differently, we can credit them.
Yeah.
I have to think about. I have to kind of remind myself, make sure I don't fall, because one of the articles I just saw was I know I hadn't covered it yet, but I almost I had seen it covered by Jared Dark the other day. It was in regard to One Piece, but first I gotta go back to figure out where it last.
While you're looking that up, maybe not that I've really talked too much on it either, but maybe Metal's thoughts on the whole Eric July being sued about ISOM. Or did you not hear about that?
I heard about it. I heard he has not actually been served yet. It's mostly talk, but he is talking to his lawyers. But that was at least a day or so ago. I don't know if he usually don't serve people on the weekend, right? So I if anything is going to come from it, it's probably going to come afterwards.
Yeah. But with the ministry thing, it just being more an acronym for them, and his being the name of a character, do you think they have any?
Well, yeah, it was all born out of concern trolling,
Yeah.
No, it wasn't even concern trolling from what I get.
Because the way copyright and trademark works, it has to be used for the same purpose because the whole point is to alleviate confusion, right? So if one is like a ministry and one is like a comic book character, you aren't going to be worried that these two things are going to confuse each other. Now, if one was a comic book character and the other was like a cartoon character or like a novel character, then you might have grounds for it because there might be confusion there.
Yeah. Well, although I don't think they really have much of a case, I end up thinking one case in particular that something similar like this came up quite some time ago, and it sort of falls into the niche, is WWF versus the World Wildlife Foundation. Or something like that.
That was over the use of the WEF, initials.
Yeah, they were both WWF.
That was eventually they did settle that, and that kind of closed out when WWF changed its name to World Wrestling Entertainment, WWE.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now here's the thing: WWF probably would have won that realistically. Right, they settled out and changed. One of the reasons people end up settling, even when they do have the right, law behind their side, is because being in court is very expensive, and the longer something goes, the more and more money that you lose. And if there's an easier solution, most of the time people take it.
Yeah. Okay, so I wasn't sure whether they won or lost or whatever. I just knew it was a similar situation, not quite the same, but.
Yeah. Most cases ever are actually settled. Very, very few of them are actually decided by a judge. Especially even like personal cases, like one attorney will come to the other. They'll be like, "Hey, we'll drop this if you settle to this," and they'll make an agreement, and the judge will approve it and be like, "Okay, we settled it out of court."
The last article that I covered was it was from originally August 16th, which is a week ago, Thursday. Dark Horse Comics writer Christoph Bogach says you can't have a career in mainstream comics and be part of comics. That one was pretty interesting. So now I've got to just, as I said, I want to try to move things a little faster here, move things up a bit. So instead of doing that one again with you guys, I mean, I think it would be a good conversation to have, just going over it. It's just that, since I'm a bit more behind now, I want to see what else.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's always
This one looks like it could spark some conversation here. This is in the comic book section here. And so, all right. So let's see. Let's get into this one here. James Gunn promotes Kelly Sue DeConnick's Wonder Woman queer history rewrite. Says it's breathtaking, in quotes, and quote unquote beautiful.
And with that, I am done with James Gunn's entire DC universe.
Yeah.
Okay, now let me just remind you, Kelly Sue DeConnick is the one, as I recall, is the one who basically told everybody, if you don't like my politics, don't buy my book. Right?
Oh yeah, that was her. That was Kelly.
Yeah. So I initially thought it was Gail Simone, but people were correct. No, it's Kelly Sue DeConnick. So
well, they might have both said it.
Yeah. J.B. Augustine, article about J.B. Augustine published on the 17th, which has been, a week ago. Wednesday was the previous one, so this would have been a week ago Thursday. So, is the DCU in trouble? I would say so. What would you guys say?
Oh yeah, but not even for Wonder Woman.
At least,
but it was also in trouble before they even gave it to Gunn. Like he was supposed to save it, and then he's doing things that won't even put it back on life support.
Right. No, at least for Wonder Woman, no, we're not talking about the mixed messages when it comes to Gal Gadot's future, who was confirmed for a sequel and then not by Warner Brothers. In the span of a day, something else came up that possibly could portend where the Amazons of Paradise Island are headed as a whole in James Gunn's universe.
Now, with where the title puts this possibly going, I think we've heard this argument before, about Paradise Island. It's like, it's old. Why does it need to be brought up for a movie? Yeah. Anyways.
Okay. It starts with Gunn himself and his giving of flowers, so to speak, and flattery to Kelly Sue DeConnick on X. The artist on X. And this is something that I think
similar to my joke, yeah.
On X, in parentheses, the artist formerly known as Twitter, the filmmaker and DC Studios exec showcased a cover and some pages from DeConnick's Wonder Woman graphic novel Historia: The Amazons, which retells their history and morphs it into something readers don't recognize. Quote, Historia is a breathtaking work of sequential art and one of the best things to come out of in brackets DC and comics in the past few years. Unquote. Gunn initially posted with the gallery. Quote, thank you to, in brackets, Kelly Sue, in brackets, Phil Jimenez, in brackets, Gene Ha, in brackets, Nicola Scott, for this incredible experience, unquote. He finished that post with a link to Amazon, not DC.com, or Universe Infinite, where the book is available. And then I guess here are some of the screenshots. A page that shows a sub-pantheon of mythic Greek goddesses accompanied by and adorned with occult symbols is included in the screenshots from Historia in Gunn's post. Demeter's serpent, Artemis's antlers, and the witch-like Hecate are the most notable. But Aphrodite is also noteworthy. Not only is the depiction nude, but she is also a curvy woman of color. So just to kind of spice things up, or the whole representation bit, it sounds like they decided they're going to race swap the Greek goddesses too.
Yes, Greek goddesses or gods and goddesses would be, let's see, Greek.
Well, that's not necessarily, but most of them would be very, very, very European. The Olympian family itself, Zeus's, are described as being golden. Even Hermes is sometimes described with like blonde hair. So they seem like they're not from it, but everybody else in the pantheon does seem very Greek.
Yeah. Yeah, but then again, that might just be because they're quote unquote gods. So gods sometimes have special features that, normal people don't, like, golden or blonde hair.
DeConnick thanked Gunn for taking the time to praise and highlight pages of her and the rest work. Quote, it's incredibly kind of you to make the time to do this, unquote. She replied, quote, thank you, unquote. He made more time and answered back, quote, it was kind of you to put so much heart into something so beautiful for us to enjoy. Man, doesn't that just sound like
Well, okay.
An SJW rear end kissing party?
I just want to know, why is he blowing smoke up her ass?
Does it really matter? And does anybody really?
Why is he trying to butter her up? And obviously, this article does not seem to be what I thought it was going to be about at first from the title, but
it's because DeConnick, for some reason, has a lot of clout in the industry.
Who does?
DeConnick, for some reason, has a lot of clout in the industry, even though everything that she's made has failed to push numbers.
And it's kind of funny too, because
like failing upwards.
Okay, well, yeah, and that's what they talk a lot about, these creators, these corporate creators. But I remember another interview where I guess she and her husband did, where it's kind of funny. At one point, they did an interview with her and her husband a few months back, where they were basically complaining that nobody was buying their book. They were like crying and whining that nobody was buying their books. When I read that article, I pointed out, well, you did tell people that if they didn't like their politics, don't buy your book. It was like one of the most dumbest things I'd seen. It's like, really, you go out and you tell people not to buy your book, and then they don't buy your book. You go out and say, well, if you don't like my politics, don't buy my book. And then people actually do exactly what you tell them, and you're like flabbergasted. It was like what are the shows stupidity I've never seen.
Well, there could be that, But there could be that your book is shit and we don't like it, so we're not going to buy it.
Yeah, well, specifically, the sad part is Matt Fraction, her husband, actually understands like the basic parts of storytelling. He just doesn't belong in like any of the mainstream books he's on. Like he did Superman Pals Jimmy or whatever for a while. Doesn't belong in any of that. He actually just stick to the gay romance books he was doing before he was invited into work in these like superhero comics.
You know, like go with what you're good at, and apparently, writing comics ain't. You're not good at it.
Yeah.
We don't want gay romance in comics.
Yeah.
Or
I mean, some people
most-
do, but they just
Yeah,
don't belong in superhero comics. Go to that audience over there who already wants it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we don't want to see
It's
Superman
just
in a gay romance.
It's just another case of them taking a legacy character, you know, because it's a lot easier to sell an agenda with a legacy character than it is to come up with an original character to sell your agenda. You know, if you can get Superman or Robin or Wonder Woman to sit there and say, "Hey, look, I'm gay, I'm lesbian, and it's cool," and that's how you draw people in. You know, it's like
But I disagree with that because you do that and you alienate so many fans that you'd be better off just using a whole new character.
Yeah, I mean, Rick, I think we've seen enough evidence that line of thinking doesn't work. Okay, but however,
They don't get the message.
thinking that they've got there. You know, it's like they believe it's a much easier to, for lack of a better term, normalize, you know, LGBTQ plus by making an established legacy character like Superman, like Robin, like Wonder Woman, like Green Lantern, Alan,
Like Iceman as well when they did that.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's because they're out of touch with reality, right? It's being in that kind of like LA bubble where the rest of the world is not communicating to you or vice versa, and you're just throwing things out and not understanding why it's not sticking. To some degree, it's okay to have your head in the clouds as long as your feet are still on the ground. And these people, their feet have not been on the ground for a long time. They're like hanging by a balloon tied around their neck.
Are you sure that their heads are in the clouds and not maybe someplace else?
Well, I mean, if they are in some weird
Orifice,
Chinese gymnastic pose doing that, they're definitely up in the stratosphere at the same time.
Yeah. So, anyway, so getting back to the and you're gonna have to. My sister, I guess, decided it was time to start vacuuming out in the hall there. So I guess
We can hear it just slightly, at least as far as I'm concerned. It's not really that much bothering. So,
all right. Just give you guys a heads up. Anyways, continuing with the article here. Our readers may recall we reported on Historia 2 years ago when DC went behind the scenes and into DeConnick and Jimenez's impetus for the book. She was very clear she wanted to.
that doesn't sound good.
What doesn't sound good, Rick?
They went behind the scenes into their impetuous.
Yeah. She was very clear she wanted to reinterpret the Amazon mythology to suit today and current trends.
Yes, let's reinvent Greek mythology completely.
Well, I mean, they already did with DC anyway.
Yeah, I was gonna probably say
Well,
that.
I think there was always somewhat of a granted, it wasn't quite as pronounced as it is now, but I think over the last few years, the last 15, 20 years, there might have been kind of a subtle subtext of the Amazons being into lesbianism. I mean, you have to remember they get the word lesbian from
the Isle of
word,
Lesbos.
the Isle of Lesbos, right?
Which is funny because that literally only comes from one poet's work, and it's a stretch to even use her work for that she was possibly into women. Although a lot of her work talks about how much she liked guys and was mostly like she didn't understand them and it felt like a world apart. But like all that funniness about the weird telephone game that was played. Eventually, we got the word lesbian from it.
And who was that artist?
I actually forget the poet's name. I'd have to look it up. But she was a old Greek poet from the late Macedonian era. And so I'd have to.
All right. So anyway,
Yeah, but yeah, sure. DC has taken some liberties with Greek mythology in the past, but I think
Sappho. It's also where the word sapphic comes from.
Yeah.
That was her name.
Right.
7th century
But,
BC.
Yeah, well, you have to remember too. Wonder Woman didn't necessarily start out as Greek mythos, so it started out with Roman mythos. When Marston's actually originally came up with the character, they were using the Roman pantheon, not the Greek.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, honestly, mythology was really, really bad in early comics days. Like, people would just not even read about it and just pick up what little they knew and create, which is a very creative way of doing things. Like, you can have interesting stories that way. But we kind of got like a peak of where people were trying to blend the universe with like more accurate information about mythological history, probably in the late 80s through early aughts. Oddly enough, Moore was one of the better people for that. Gaiman was a better influence on that too. Morrison as well. Like, we actually get some people who were really looking into the mythology. We hit like a peak, and now it's going like way back downhill where it's like, no, we could just rewrite it however we want at any time.
Yeah. Okay, well, even if it was Roman at the beginning, like Greek and Roman mythology are very similar. So, even if they were taking a few
I'm glad
liberties.
you said similar. If you said same, I was about to get extremely triggered.
Well, he said similar. He didn't say same. He said similar.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I know obviously a lot of the names are different, but I'm sure there's a
A lot of the
more
stories are different.
Yeah. But a lot of them represent like Jupiter and Zeus are like very similar, if the same, close to the same, maybe just similar. I'm not sure how best to describe it besides similar, but I know there's enough difference, beyond just names.
Well, they kind of come from the same like parent mythology before that, which probably all comes from Crete. And one thing I liked about the later DC universe when they did all these different worlds is they explained that the Greek and Roman actually started off as the same people, and they kind of like split apart and became their own entities over time.
Yeah, which sort of makes sense. But like DC and even probably Marvel, may have taken some liberties in when they were first creating this. And as you said, it's because they didn't know a lot and they didn't do their research. But now we know most of these people can actually do research, and they're doing even less research, or they know it and they just say
they're doing like
it.
anti-research now.
Well, I think what they do is they just flip the bird at established continuity and say, no, we don't care about the established continuity. We're going to just create our own continuity.
Well, almost as something, this is why I call it anti-research. It almost looks like in some cases that they're specifically looking it up to change it. Right? Because a lot of times it feels close enough and then subverted. So it's like, you have to know. The only way you could have done it that way is if you knew how it was. It's not accidental or random.
Right.
Yeah. And of course, we're not talking about the continuity of DC and Marvel here. We're just talking about, I'd say the continuity of,
I would say both.
The mythology.
Both are involved here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, let's get back to the article here.
Yeah.
That was a good exchange you guys had, but still, we need to get through some of this stuff. So, quote, because this is fiction, when we write about the past today, we're not really writing about the past, unquote, she said at the time. Quote, we're writing about today, unquote, she added. Quote, there's no point in making art, about the past unless you're using it to talk about the present or the future, because the past is past. Unquote.
Yes,
Descartes,
but if you're misrepresenting the past, how can you talk about the past compared to today?
Mhm.
That's not what she's saying, but the problem is the way that she's looking at it is that she's actually missing the lessons from the past, and that's the real reason most people talk about the past is to bring those lessons up. And if you're just not going to look at it as it is, you're completely missing those lessons and probably doomed to
Well,
repeat them.
Yeah,
either they're
well,
missing the lessons or they're wanting to ignore the lessons because
Yeah.
they don't like
yeah,
the lesson.
Yeah.
Well,
They don't
that's
like
sort
the
of,
lesson.
that's sort of what I meant, Metal, because of her misrepresenting the past, you can't learn stuff, to compare it to today or whatever, If I think you know what I mean. Like if you misrepresent it, you can't learn the lesson, so you doomed to repeat.
All right. So anyways, continue on here. DeConnick also made it abundantly clear she is throwing some rules out because of her literary perspective on a bygone era and because of how she wants to portray women. I think what that is, that's like code for saying, well, no, I don't like the traditional view of women and being homemakers and all that. So I'm just gonna wipe my butt with the tradition and just
Yeah,
write a whole new history.
or the way that women were portrayed in these cultures in the past.
Oh, I think there is a thing that happens sometimes when men are trying to celebrate women, and this happens sometimes when women are trying to celebrate women as well. But it happens a lot when men are trying to celebrate women, unquote, she explained. That statement almost sounds condescending to me. Particularly the women celebrating women part of it. Again, I think it's almost like she's taking a jab at the traditional roles and views of women. Quote, women get put on a pedestal in a way that suggests that women are just better, right? Unquote. She
No, not usually.
She continued, quote, that they're in smaller quote more communal and quote unquote gentler and in smaller quotes more nurturing. They're not aggressive like those terrible, awful men. And putting someone on a pedestal is just another way of putting them in a box. It's not helpful.
No, they're just dealing with what most women usually are. Yes, you have your um, things that are not, different from the rules. Yes, you have your women that are aggressive, but a lot of women are nurturers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the thing is, there's a negative side to that too, and that is where the bitterness of women come in. But like the thing is, I actually don't have a problem with most of what she's saying here, specifically regarding the Amazons, because if you know the mythology, they were a bunch of very aggressive, warring women. Like they were an army, right?
Yeah.
Even like Heracles had to. Well, actually, they would have just given it to him. He was like thinking too much, but he had to try to sneak in and steal Hippolyta's girdle. But they all actually liked Heracles. If he had come in and asked for it, she probably would have just gave it to him.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, you have to remember too when Marston originally created Wonder Woman, it was all about sharing love. It's like
Yeah,
more.
he's the one that ruined it. Like in some ways, this is actually closer, somewhat, to what the Amazons were like.
Yeah.
Well, this is
A little bit closer than what he had. I think there was definitely a peak in between where they were even closer. But if we were to compare this to specifically the way she was when she first began, this is slightly closer.
Or it's sounding like it will be.
Yeah.
It continues to other. It continues to other us. That doesn't other. What?
I
Well,
get what
okay,
it
so
is.
there's the term "to other something." That's what they're talking about. that they're being othered. Like this is
It
us,
doesn't-
that's the
it
other.
doesn't make much sense to me, but
Yeah.
she then discussed assumptions made about women based on conceptions of communal societies.
I guess a good way to break down, if it doesn't make sense, when someone talks about othering, they're talking about being put outside of the tribe, right? Like here's the in group, that's the out group. If somebody's othered, they're part of the out group.
Yeah, which is, if you're othering somebody, you can dehumanize them usually.
All right. So anyway, getting back to the article, quote, so the idea that a society of women would be more communal makes a lot of assumptions about women that are sort of essentialist and really discounts how much of a way women are has to do with what women are asked or forced to do culturally. She said in the end. Well, the thing is, though, yes, they have been maybe in some of the more later or recent versions of Wonder Woman, women have been depicted as, but even on Paradise Island or Themyscira, how you want to call it, they were, even when they didn't have any men on the island or men were banned from the island, the women were still communal with each other. Right?
Well, so here's the thing about women.
Yeah.
Women hate women. Like more than anybody else. Women cannot stand other women. They might have a good friend, but they get very cliquey and they get very gossipy and backstabby, and they try to find other ways of, like, passive aggressively of dealing with each other. But if you were a group of warrior women, that probably would like that would probably be stable for a while of people gossiping and backstabbing, but every so often it would probably heat up to a boil to where two people actually started fighting each other.
Yeah.
They pick up the sword,
Which would be something that they want their warrior women, right?
Yeah,
But but Wonder Woman.
If that's how they were handling it, that would be fine.
But also I think Wonder Woman, depending on which era that you're in, like before New 52, she will kill people, So she's not putting up on a pedestal where she's not going to be not violent,
I also, from a historical mythological standpoint, don't have that much of a problem with involving, I guess what we'll call lesbianness with the Amazons in general, because that's not too far from the myth. Mostly not too far from how Greek people saw life, because they really didn't care what women did. Like, they didn't. If a woman wanted to be with a woman, that didn't matter, because that type of honor and virtue really only mattered to men, and it was disvirtuous to be a submissive man. So they did not like anybody who was necessarily a bottom. And for the most part, they didn't like gay men. But they didn't care what women did while men were away. And if this was a whole island of women, they would think, well, women have urges that naturally need to be filled. My bigger problem is when they said things like, we're going to race bend Aphrodite. That's actually crossing the line for me.
Yeah. All right, so, quote, I love this work because it is, to me, clearly the work of a woman, and maybe less clearly, but certainly I can see it and see the work of a gay dude.
Yeah.
Said Jimenez, who was excited to be working on the project. So, can I assume by that statement that Phil Jimenez is gay?
No,
I would assume so.
Well, I was going to say not necessarily he. I was thinking it would just be the work of some. Well, I guess because he's not her husband.
He's implying it here, because he's going to be the one working with the Conic, right? So like he's definitely implying it. Either that or it's worded very horribly, but that sentence is implying it. But this is actually right here my problem, right? It's not even the fact that they want to possibly make the women of Themyscira bi or lesbian or anything. It's the political reasons for it. They're not trying to make it accurate. They're actually trying to make it inaccurate on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, at first I wasn't sure whether it's trying to do that, implicate that he's gay or not. But still, at the same time, what? Just because a gay guy is gay, he's going to know what women are like more? I don't think so.
You'll know what catty people are like.
To be working on the project with DeConnick due to their mutual political ideals, which made it onto the pages. It's all there. So basically, he just outed that. Yeah, we're gonna push our own political. Screw the fans. We're just gonna push our own ideology on you. You don't like it? Screw you. And then of course when the book doesn't sell, then you'll probably hear Kelly Sue DeConnick and Phil Menez and Matt Braxton on another interview show crying, whining about why aren't they buying my book? Why aren't they buying my book? Yeah. Anyways, quote, I don't think of it exclusively in terms of sexuality so much as the notion of the queering of the world. Jimenez added, expounding on definitions, quote, I think of being queer as being anti-tradition, anti-patriarchal, oh, here we go again, as something that upends kind of a traditional and often conservative, regressive point of view. Yeah, these people are just so enlightened, aren't they?
Yeah. Like they can't even understand the time period they're talking about because of the way they view the world.
So the way
it's looking like this article is what I thought it was going to be. Anyways,
what was that, Rick?
I said it's looking like this article is going to be what I thought it was going to be.
Well, you have to wait until we get through it,
Yeah. Yeah.
So the way I use in smaller quotes queer is a huge part of it. Now, on that, let me just remind everybody, because we talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
You guys know I talk about this all the time. Obviously over time and due to some cultural issues, words do change meaning. We talk about how queer was used a lot more back in the golden age to mean like weird or strange. Now
peculiar.
It's got a completely different meaning.
Yeah. Well, also I was going to say too, just because it's a conservative point of view for some reason, it's got to be regressive.
It's not even actually that old because I remember even in The Nightmare Before Christmas, in one of the songs, Jack is using the word "how queer" to talk about how peculiar that snow is because he never gets it where he's from, and that was made in like 91 or something like that. I forget when The Nightmare Before Christmas
but
came
queer at that point had come to mean about being homosexual. At that
point. But I mean, we hadn't lost the original meaning yet, right? It had both meanings, and then by now we've lost the original meaning. We only have meaning 2.
Well, I don't think we've lost it, but not a lot of people use
culturally.
It
it's lost.
Yeah.
So anyway, DeConnick and Jimenez's play on Wonder Woman's encompassing mythos was released as a Black Label title, and one would think an Elseworlds one, but it may go further. Gunn's one-off tribute could actually be sowing the seeds of a complete big screen revamp of the DCU, formed from hysteria as a basis for the holy or piecemeal. So I think that the interpretation there is Gunn's gonna try to push
that part of this
agendas in his movies. I think is what he's basically saying.
Yeah.
What would you say to that, Metal?
I don't really have anything else to add to that. That just sounds about right.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman 3 is not 100% confirmed by Warner Brothers, so it's in doubt. However, James Gunn has announced one Wonder Woman adjacent project for his slate, Paradise Lost, a Max prequel series. It was described as a Game of Thrones story, in quotes here, a Game of Thrones story type story about Themyscira, unquote, involving, quote, all of the darkness, drama, political intrigue behind this society of only women, unquote. Gunn may lean into those elements and do something to change Diana Prince's origin, even if Gal Gadot stays attached. Should that be the case, she won't be playing the DCEU version of her character, according to a new rumor that ties all of this together. Scooper, Can We Get Some Toast? Claims Paradise Lost will change Diana's origin again and move away from the one established in 2018.
Of course, because they always got to change Diana's origin. They done
Well,
that a lot in the
they got
comics.
to change everything to fit modern times because that's just the cool thing to do, right?
Well, it's not even that. They've changed Diana's origins. I don't know how many times.
I don't know. I think the idea of an immortal queen shaping a child from clay and then having that child be blessed by goddesses, one of them giving her life. I don't know. I think that sounds like a pretty good story. Don't you guys?
I think it's more interesting than her just being another daughter of Zeus.
Yeah, same here. That Zeus,
and it's also very Greek. Like that one thing right there, whether that was accidental or not, actually sounds like something you might hear in a Greek story. It hasn't been one, but like golem making and stuff, that sounds like old world myth, where it's like, oh, and then this thing made of the earth was then brought to life by the power of the divine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Quote, the Max prequel show, in brackets Paradise Lost, will change Gal Gadot's, brackets Wonder Woman, origin from Patty Jenkins' first film, unquote, I guess. Toast Post said along with the cover for the Black Label graphic novel, Can We Get Some Toast? Is considered a trusted source for rumors and has a fairly accurate track record, which means he could be on the money here. Still, time has to tell if he's right for better or worse.
Sounds
what
like
do you
for
guys
worse.
think of all that?
Crazy, typical.
All right, so we're now just past the 2-hour mark. So I think it would be a good time to start winding down.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2 hours. It was like 2 hours and almost two seconds here. So with that, today is Sunday, August 27th, 2023. Why don't we take a look back at this weekend in Nietzsche history? History. This. All right. So first off, we're gonna head back to yesterday. First off, we're gonna head back 20 years ago yesterday.
That's not too long.
Huh? Yeah.
I said that's not too long. I was actually alive.
Yeah. On yesterday's date, 20 years ago, yesterday. Should I pull this up here? Walt Disney direct-to-video animated science fiction comedy film Stitch the Movie was released on this date, on yesterday's date rather, back in 2003. So 20 years ago yesterday, Stitch the Movie was released by Walt Disney Television Animation and Rough Draft Korea. So
cool.
That one wasn't too bad. Most direct-to-video sequels by Disney are awful. That one was watchable. Had some interesting new characters it brought in.
All right.
I'm not sure whether I've seen that or not.
Now, moving 10 years ahead from that point of view, and of course 10 years ago yesterday, on yesterday's date, 10 years ago, WWE had its Monday Night Raw event. From the U.S. Airways Center in Phoenix, Arizona. Main event saw Daniel Bryan defeat The Shield by DQ in a gauntlet match. Let's see. Titus O'Neil defeated Jack Swagger. Let's see. Brie Bella defeated Natalia. CM Punk defeated Curtis Axel. Cody Rhodes and The Miz defeated Damian Sandow and Fandango. Of course, that was following a match, very quick match between Cody Rhodes and Fandango. So, um, anyways, so that happened 10 years ago yesterday. And then moving ahead a couple years after that, on that date, 8 years ago yesterday. 8 years ago yesterday. Um, 8 years ago yesterday, the 20th issue of East of West from Image Comics went on sale on 8 years ago yesterday. It sold for $3.50, 28 pages. The story was The Tangled Web, written by Jonathan Hickman, with art by Nick Dragotta, lettered by Ross Morton, and then colored by Frank Martin Jr. Now, I have a feeling, Rick, were you about to say something?
Well, I was just going to say Joshua Hughes in the chat says, I don't remember Stitch the movie, what Stitch the movie was about. I know Lilo and Stitch has a glitch, and the show.
Well, my guess is Stitch the movie was based off of Lilo and Stitch.
Well, no, I think he he knows about the movie Lilo and Stitch, but he's talking about, he knows that it would be based off that, but what the movie's just the Stitch movie is, without Lilo.
Yeah.
It's kind of the one that I think sets up the show. Stitch is still not fitting in with society from like the last movie, and he's trying his best. And in the middle of everything, you run into two other experiments, which is where Sparky comes in, the lightning guy, and Ruben, the one just before Stitch, who's can do everything he can, but it's kind of lame because all he wants to do is make sandwiches, and he has to like deal with that at the same time. And it puts like strain whether he's actually going to be able to stay with them or not, but it gets resolved in the end.
And then there's Lilo and Stitch 2, which was straight to DVD as well, I believe, which I haven't seen.
Yeah. So, anyways, now one last piece of niche history. So on today's date, 30 years ago today.
I'm still alive.
On today's date, 30 years ago today, Studio Kikon and Studio Marines Dochi ni Pira, the Gigolo, premiered. I believe that was a movie, but they're saying, oh no, it's an OVA. The OVA, Dochi ni Pira, was released on this date 30 years ago from Studio Kikon and Studio Marine. So with that, that's all we got for the history segment. Actually, one other piece of history that I also knew, albeit I didn't pull it up because we were just trying to do one selection each. But 20 years ago yesterday, the anime Full Metal Panic Fumofu premiered.
Cool.
I like Full Metal Panic.
Huh?
I said I like Full Metal Panic.
Have you seen Fumofu?
I'm trying to think. Have I? Is that like a follow-up? I've only ever seen the original. I have it on DVD.
Okay, it is kind of a follow-up, but the way they present it, it's almost like the event seemed to be taking place at about the same time that the main series is.
So it's kind of like a guidance. It's another story.
The first season of Full Metal Panic was more serious and more kind of focused on Sasuke protecting Konami from the bad guy because she had some instinctive knowledge of this technology they used. Fumofu was more of a comedy version of that, in which it was an absolute outrageously absurdist comedy, where including having a giant teddy bear kick mob guys' butt.
You got the complete collection right here.
Of the first series?
Yep.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
7
that's not.
volumes.
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
it too. I have it too. Fumofu is the one where basically like Sosuke would be going around in that that smaller mech suit of that, what they called a bontakun,
Mm-hmm.
like a giant teddy bear. Fumofu, as I said, one of the funniest productions I've ever seen of all time because it was just so outrageously absurd.
Yeah, I don't
Some
think
of
I've seen it. This is all I've ever seen.
the main series. You
Yeah.
should. I mean, if you're into so Sosa having been raised in the military, he's not always keen on how to live in a civil society. How he tends to overreact to everything, and how his overreactions can be really kind of out there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Fumofu takes that to over 10. If the scale goes to 10, it's like Fumofu takes that aspect to like 11. It's some pretty funny stuff. I highly recommend if you want to if you're into just absolute. I don't want to give too much of it away. Obviously, I think you would find it incredibly funny just because of some of the absurdity of it. Okay, I guess to kind of try to whet your appetite a little bit here for it. You have one instance in there where you basically have what looks like basically a giant teddy bear beating up on a bunch of mob guys, including really personally hurting somebody in a very personal manner, if you get what I mean.
Maybe.
So it is something that I would highly recommend you. But that was just
Is
the
it
first.
more or less ridiculous than the Gundam X Hello Kitty crossover?
Yeah. 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 So, but that's something I would highly recommend if you want to look that up and watch that, because to me it's one of the fun. I don't know how you would feel about some of. I mean, some of it's kind of like really out there, absurdity wise. It's like when you sit there and you watch how Sosuke processes certain information in a civil society. It's on the one hand it's funny, but some of it would be looked at as very extreme. So I don't want to give too much of it away. I think you should watch it and make up your own mind on it. But anyway, so all right, everybody. Well, I thank everybody for being here tonight. I thank you guys for being here and chatting up with me. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed the conversation and all that. We did talk about quite a few things tonight. So with that, I thank everybody for being here. Oh, I almost forgot. You guys, we'll start with Metal, go to Rick, and then I'll close things up. So Metal, you want to do your outro?
Sure. The Metal. I make stuff. You should go read it. There's a link right above my head, xdynamuschaos.com. I guess I could drop that in the chat again. Actually, it's only one up. I have specifically a short that's kind of wrestling themed that you should go read. It's 6 pages. It's right there on my site. And that's it. That's all I'm going to say.
All right, Rick?
Okay, well, although I'm sharing a link again to my website, but it's to the page where, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I'm okay. I think my signal just kind of boofed a little bit there for a moment.
Okay. Although I'm sharing the link to my website so you can buy my comics, I'll just promote my channel. Like for those that don't know, I'm here on YouTube doing a channel, doing a show 5 days a week, or although I'll be on sometimes twice a day. Like Monday, tomorrow, I'll be on twice. I'll be on at 8 for about an hour, and then I'll be on at 10 for 2 hours for anybody that would like to come and watch. And any artists, feel free to stop by to draw with me and a couple other friends.
All right. Well, with that, guys, we'll be back here tomorrow night with our Nietzsche news coverage. We'll, of course, we'll eventually get caught up, I hope, soon enough. And of course, this Friday, Rick, you'll actually be back with me this Friday as we will be continuing our look at comics that went on sale in December 1939. This week we'll be focusing in on Marvel comics. I'll send you the links to tomorrow. I'll send you the links to the material so you can preview it.
Hopefully, and it'll be a real timely experience.
You're right. And we'll of course we'll be covering December 1939 from between, of course, this past Friday through just before Thanksgiving, the last Thursday before Thanksgiving. Then we'll be taking the week off, and then starting in December, we'll be getting into 1940. We'll be getting into 1940, so we'll be moving with that. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.